These are the new metal releases for September 27th, 2024. I have 5 albums to talk about. Most of these are fairly underground, with only one well-known artist who just released an EP. I had some death metal, some doom metal, some gothic metal, some power metal. So I have a nice variety of genres to talk about this week, so let's get right into it. The first EP I have is by Serj Tankian, and it's called Foundations. It's a short EP from the System of a Down frontman, and I don't think we'll ever get another album by that band, so I'll take this in the meantime. If you didn't know, he's been releasing a lot of solo material since the mid-2000s. His solo material can get heavy at times, but doesn't really sound exactly like the music of System of a Down. But with that being said, it's not too bad, so let me talk about this real quick. The opening track is called AF Day. This one sounds like a mix of punk and grunge, with the verse sounding more like punk and the chorus being a little more extreme. Serj uses a lot of different vocal styles throughout the song, and they say the name of the song in the chorus, which is Another Effing Day. The middle of the song also gets a little trippy and psychedelic. And the next song was Justice Will Shine On. This was another heavy track with some alternative rock vibes, and this one had a sound that reminded me a little of System, but in the lyrics he mentioned that we are children of the survivors, and the song is about the Armenian genocides, and the lyrics were very personal for Serj because his grandparents were survivors of the genocide. And then the next song also gets pretty heavy, includes some of his powerful vocals. After this is a song called Appropriations, and the song is a balance between the soft and heavy sections. Then Cartoon Buyer is a little different. It's more of like a laid-back and psychedelic track with acoustic guitars and violins in the verse. But then in the chorus, it gets heavy again with like these punk rock guitars. And it's another song that goes back and forth between the heavy and the light. The last song is called Life's Revengeful Son. This is another song with some softer and heavier parts, as well as some alternative rock vibes. The song is about struggles and sacrifice. In one of the lyrics, he sings, Jesus seen in the streets dragging a car axle instead of a cross. So this is just a more modern take on Jesus and his suffering. Overall, it's a solid EP. I think it was a little heavier than some of the other solo albums and EPs that I remember from him. So it's an 8 out of 10 for me, and let me know if you have listened to this. The next band I have is called Invernoir, and the album is called Aimin for Oblivion. They are an Italian Gothic death doom band, and this is their second full-length album. They have a sound that can be compared to maybe My Dying Bride, as well as a few others, which is kind of funny because later on I'm going to talk about another band which features the vocalist of My Dying Bride. But back to this. This band has 4 members, and the album has 8 tracks, and each song is between 5 and 7 minutes long. The music has a lot of atmosphere. They're both clean and distorted guitars. There's also thick bass guitar sounds. Songs move at a fairly slow pace. As for the vocals, they use heavy and clean vocals. The heavy vocals incorporate both death growls and higher black metal sounding vocals. The clean vocals have more of a gothic rock type of sound. The opening track is called Shadow Slave. This one is just 6 minutes of some dark and evil sounding death doom. The second track is called Doom. This one has some sludgy riffs and some atmospheric sounds in the background. And in addition to the sludgy riffs, there's some clean and atmospheric sections. And when you listen to the song, it kind of takes you on this like dreamy journey. That's kind of what I felt when I was listening to it. After this is the song Desperate Days. This had more of a melodic death metal sound, including some harmonized guitar melodies, something like the band Insomnium. And then the song Forgotten in Time, which has some Black Sabbath-inspired guitar riffs and kind of move at a slow and sludgy speed. And side 2 is the track Broken. It gave me some gothic doom vibes. And the aforementioned My Dying Bride kind of had that kind of sound. And also had some heavy pounding drum beats. Then there is this epic 7-minute song called Few Minutes with melodic leads and heavy riffs. And this track also has some of those old school Sabbath-inspired guitar riffs. The penultimate track is called Unworthy. This shows off their softer, more atmospheric side. The last track is called Useless, and this one offers more of those melodic, harmonized lead guitars and some atmospheric vocals and soundscapes. Overall, it's a good death doom album. If you like music that's slow, heavy, atmospheric, with clean vocals and death growls, I think you can get into this. My score is 7.5 out of 10. I think you should check it out if you like this particular genre. The next band is called Ripped to Shreds. The album is called Sanshi. They are a death metal and grindcore band from San Jose, California. This is their fourth full-length album. Now, I remember the previous album in 22 called Jubian. I reviewed that on this channel. It's like a typical death metal album. There are 10 songs, 40 minutes long. And what's unique about this album is that a lot of the songs were inspired by Chinese folklore and Taiwanese funeral rites. The opening track is called Into the Court of the Yanlua Wang. And this has lots of speed, lots of intensity, and features some like tempo changes and groovy guitar riffs. After this is Force Fed. This has some old school death metal vibes with intense drumming. And Sacrificial Rite. This one stood out because really great drumming in this one. Lots of rapid fire blast beats. After this, Visions of Sin, Mirror of Darkness. And this one, they got a little slower, a little darker. And this was unique as well because it kind of reminded me of like Slayer's South of Heaven album. It had that particular tone. And then Feast of the Deceased. This one, lots of speed and aggression. Probably a little bit more of a grindcore type of song. Then Horrendous Corpse, Resurrection. And this was one of the singles. And this one has lots of deep guttural vocals. And those vocals kind of gives it like this very like sick and disgusting type of sound, if you know what I mean, if you're a fan of death metal. Then the next track is called Living in Effigy. And this one has a story behind it. It's basically about a group of photographers. They go to rural China. And they photographed elderly people who were deceased and living, and they died in solitude. So there was a whole thing about that. Then there's Corpse Bethronal, and this one, it's a little slower, a lot of heavy distorted guitars. And then Cultivating Towards Ascension, where they bring back that aggressive grindcore sound. And the final song, Perverting the Funeral Rites. This one is about Taiwanese funeral rites, and the song features thick and distorted bass guitar tones. Overall, a strong death metal and grindcore record. I remember I enjoyed the previous album, so this one is an 8 out of 10 for me. Definitely one of those if you enjoy death metal on the extreme side. Next is the band High Parasite with Forever We Burn. This is a gothic metal band from the UK, and this is their debut album. And this band has Aaron Stainthorpe from My Dying Bride on vocals. He's the lead vocalist of My Dying Bride. I imagine this is a side project of his. And I found this album to be a little similar to the album from Unto Others I talked about last week. It has 10 tracks, 42 minutes long. And the album opens with the title track, and it has clean and distorted guitars, lots of bass guitar, powerful drumming, and the vocals are a combination of the gothic rock vibes and like in a baritone style, and more of those aggressive, almost death metal style vocals, which would be similar to the aforementioned The Dying Bride, being it's the same vocalist. I also heard some female vocals in this particular song. I don't think they had females in the band. I think it was just a guest musician. Then the next track, My Syndrome, had more of a gothic rock, almost a doom metal sound. Something along the lines of like Paradise Lost. Then the track Grave Intentions was faster, had more of those death metal vocals. I thought it was more along the lines of melodic death metal. But this song also had some gothic rock elements as well. Then the song Wasn't Human, had more of those chugging, almost thrash metal style guitars, but the vocals were closer to like 80s goth rock. Then it was a song Concentric Nightmares, and that had some horror movie synth, the kind you would hear in like the 80s movies, and then featured heavy death metal style vocals. After this is a song Hate Springs Eternal. This was a little more slower, a little more atmospheric. Had some of those church organs. This reminded me of the band Ghost. Then there was a song called Parasite, which nicely blended their heavy death metal style with some gothic rock vibes. Then there was a track called Widowmaker, which had these 90s industrial, even some dark wave vibes. And then the last song, We Break, We Die, had some vocals that gave me a black metal vibe with some instrumentation that sounded like some of the post-punk bands of the 80s. Overall, my favorite album of the week because it was similar to the Unto Others album, but I think this band gets a little bit more experimental. I liked all the songs, so it's going to be an 8.5 out of 10, so probably my favorite of the week. Let me know if you have listened to it because it's another good goth rock album.
About the scoffing laughs of friends you've never had.
I have one more band, and that is Sirius Black, and the album is Rise of Akhenaton. Now, this is an international power metal band. It started in 2014. It's their 7th full-length album. And this band is considered to be a super group. They've changed members throughout their career. Basically, it consists of people who've been in other power metal bands, such as Visions of Atlantis and a few others. This album has 11 tracks. It's 43 minutes long. The first track is called Open Your Eyes. This one has both guitars and keyboards mixed right up front and features big and powerful vocals. After this, we have a track, We Are the Storm. More melodic heavy metal, features some big hooks, and the bass guitar playing sounds very good. Then Silent Angel has some big and heavy guitar riffs. This album also has some powerful drumming, and that can be heard on the track called Take Your Life. There were other songs that had more of an energetic and aggressive tone, and an example of that is the track Shields of Glory. Then, of course, like most power metal albums, they have the big arena rock ballads. This one is called When I'm Gone, which is right in the middle of the album. Then they have some songs that have that big fist-pumping, sing-alongable type of sounds. A track that's a good example of that is the next track called United. Then there's a title track, which probably has some of my favorite guitar riffs from the album. Then there's another power ballad that has some more of an electronic type of sound, and that's called I Will Remember. The last track in the album is called Metalized. This is another one of those big and bombastic fist-pumping types of anthems, and the ones that power metal fans usually love to listen to. Overall, it's a pretty decent power metal album. They're not doing anything different than you would expect from this type of band, so my score is an 8 out of 10. If you like this type of music, I think you would enjoy it. So that is all. Check out last week's episode of New Metal Releases of September 20th. Thanks for watching. Make sure to ring the bell for notifications. Give this video a like and subscribe to keep up to date with all my new videos. I do rocket metal reviews, rankings, and more. I'll see you in the next one.